Everyone, I'm Janice Wood. Welcome to a Senior Citizens Forum presented by Benefits for You 2 Insurance Services, where we specialize in Medicare insurance. But today we're not going to be talking about Medicare insurance. We're going to be talking about why you should review your trust, and another subject that for me, two subjects that I've experienced over the last couple years is what happens if you don't have a medical power of attorney versus having that medical power of attorney, and also what happens to your body after you no longer are alive. And I know that's an uncomfortable subject for people, but I feel like it should be addressed. My guest today, if you watched my shows in the past seasons, is my will person, or my trust person, my trust person, David Gerson, where we've talked about your financials, what happens to your finances, your properties you own, any assets you have. So please go back into our other seasons and you will find that important information that Dave and I have discussed in the past.
Exactly right.
Okay, so Dave has been a lawyer for how many years?
I can't count that high.
You can't count that much.
I started practicing law in 1970.
Okay. All right.
I know I don't look that old.
In Chicago. Neither one of us
In
look
Chicago.
that. In Chicago. Okay. In Chicago. And you did family law, I believe, at that time?
I was a divorce litigator for 15 years.
Right.
Moved out to California in 84.
Okay.
Started practicing law here in 85.
Okay. And you've been going around to people. One of the things that I know when I have referred Dave to people, he goes to them.
Yes, I do house calls.
He does house calls, which is unique for what he does. And my clients that I have sent him to, they've all been happy. We have mutual colleagues in common, and anybody that I know who has referred Dave to any of their clients, they speak very highly of him. So we're going to start off as why do you need to have that will reviewed?
You mean the trust?
That trust, yes, I'm sorry.
Yes.
I'm having that old age thing, which doesn't count because it's not supposed to if they get in my way.
There's an expression, life happens.
Life happens. Well, that important trust, and before Dave leaves today, because he did my trust about 7-8 years ago, we're going to review my trust because things change in your lifetime.
Yes.
And the things that change are maybe who you want to have medical power of attorney is going to change. And that's one of the things that we're going to make some changes to in my trust, okay? Just different things happen. Now, one of the things that I have is that I've met with a couple of clients this year who've had the same trust since their children were little.
Yeah, I just reviewed a trust that was created in 1988.
1988. Do the laws change?
Laws have changed. Family structure has changed. Lots of things have changed.
Yeah.
Life happens.
Well, right. So they had in 1988, you said?
Yeah.
Okay. They had small children at that time? All right. And now those small children have their own children?
Yep.
Okay. Life's different.
Yeah. And one of the most powerful features of a revocable living trust is that you can make changes as your life changes. So it's always relevant to what your situation is and what your goals and objectives are as they change over time. It's a great vehicle for estate planning.
Yeah, because I know when I was younger, the right word for it, okay? When I was younger, I owned some property, okay? I wasn't financially as well off as I am today. I'm not rich, but I'm not poor, okay? But I'm not raising children anymore. So I have that money that been put in other places. or my friends have been buying other pieces of property. So your estate has changed.
Mm-hmm.
And if all of a sudden you have cute little grandchildren running around, maybe you want to think about something that you want to do with them.
Some people do.
Or you may have a charity that you want to do.
Charities are important recipients, and particularly for clients of mine that don't have children of their own.
Right.
And they don't know what they want to do. And I said, well, they're family members. Well, they don't need it. I said, well, your church, your temple,
Right.
your school, medical charities, there is a world of charitable beneficiaries that you can select from, and they need our help to accomplish their goals. So if their goals align with your goals,
Right.
it makes sense to help them.
And again, as I said earlier, why those goals are so important, you can see that in detail in previous shows that I've done with Dave, okay? But one of the things that I happen to have a dog, okay? And my dog happens to be close to 19 and a half years old. And I think, what if something happened to me today?
Yeah.
Do I need to put a provision in my trust?
I can tell you the strangest event was a client couple that left money to care for 2 horses and a donkey.
Did you?
They had them in a stable,
Yeah.
a facility. And they said, well, what do we do if something happens to us? I said, well, how much would you want to leave? Well, we don't know. I said, why don't you think in terms of how much it costs? Would $3,000 a year per animal take care of all their needs?
Mm-hmm.
I said, yeah. I said, so why don't we leave them $3,000 a year for each year of their life expectancy based on the time of your death?
Right.
Take care for them at the stable so that they're still in the place that they're familiar with people that they know, so that they'll get a level of care that they've enjoyed. And the people said, wow, we can do that? I said, that's what a trust is for.
What it is for. So your needs change.
Yes.
So like my needs have changed, not a whole lot, but they have changed over the last 7 years. And I'm always worried, if something happens to me, what's going to happen to my dog? I know that my assistant that works for me, Lauren, she would take her, but I would make sure that she didn't have the financial burden of my dog.
Yeah.
Because she's the type of dog that has to see a groomer on a very regular basis.
Like me.
Like, well, definitely, right? She costs more than you do. So we have to take care. I have to take care of it. Or it may be something else that you're interested in. A lot of grandparents find themselves in the position that they're taking care of their grandchildren.
True.
Okay? And maybe that needs to be changed in your will and trust. So there's so many different scenarios out there that we can't go over it because, no, my question for you is, if you have a trust that's from 1988 and you've done nothing with it, and what happens?
If the trust was properly crafted, properly prepared, properly executed, it's still a valid legal document. Okay? That's not going to change. The things that change our life circumstances, the law changes are generally more impacted by changes to the tax law. And so trusts that were appropriate in 1988 or even 2000, 2005, 2010 may no longer be appropriate for the family because of the changes in tax law. That's important. If you haven't had your trust reviewed for 5 years and there's been no significant change in your family structure, it's still time to get a review.
Okay. And the one thing that's great about Dave is that he doesn't charge for that review.
I don't charge for reviews.
Yeah. Okay. And as I said, he comes to you.
Yeah.
Okay. Which is really great. All right. So now let me go on to my other subject. In the trust, okay, we're going to find an instrument. I'm going to call it an instrument. You can correct me if I'm wrong.
That's exactly what it is.
Okay. Called a medical power of attorney.
It's called an advanced healthcare directive in California.
Okay.
But it is a durable medical power of attorney.
Okay. So if I were to go to the doctor without having one, and let's say I ended up having a heart attack, and I can't speak for myself, and I haven't done anything, can my family make decisions for me, or my friends?
Well, the doctor may ask them for input, but they don't have any authority, any right to impose their will on what goes on. A healthcare directive appoints someone to speak for you and make medical decisions for you if you can't make them yourself. And as to the two major questions that arise, it allows you to provide the answer, to provide the guidance. One of those is end-of-life decisions. You can choose not to prolong life, or you can choose to prolong life. And I can tell you, in the past 30 plus years of doing estate planning, I've had less than a half a dozen people choose to prolong life. Okay. And when asked, none of them really had a good answer.
And one of the things that I've experienced over this, started at the end of last year, going into this year, I have a close friend whose father became very ill, all right, and he had Alzheimer's, and for several years he hasn't been even present with us, all right, but he got pneumonia, they put him in the hospital, and his wife decided that she was not going to let him go. The daughters wanted to let him go and not do any life-saving things. And it causes friction within the family.
It's not just the friction that it causes. If you have made the decision not to prolong life, what you've done is you remove the burden of guilt from the person who tells the doctor, pull the plug. If they have to make that decision, it's on them. If you've made that decision in your directive, like with my kids, I told them when we went through this, and I said, you need to know about this. If I'm ever in the position where one of you needs to make this choice to pull the plug, it's okay to feel bad. It is not okay to feel any guilt about that decision because it wasn't yours. It was mine. I made that decision. I put it in writing. I directed you to make the decision if I couldn't. And so it's not on you. There's no guilt involved. That's huge. Absolutely huge.
It's huge, right. Because what happens if I have a directive and they decide they don't want to follow it?
Oh, no.
So what happened? You're going, no. So
No. The reason you have a directive and the reason that you file it with the medical facility is so that they know what your decision is, and they can bring pressure to make sure that your wishes are met. You can't, when you're an agent, you don't have authority to contravene the directions of your principal.
Okay.
You just don't. It's not, no, I'll do it my way. Sorry, that doesn't work.
Right. Yeah, you can't do that. Now, one of the things I experienced, I had shared medical power of attorney with the Advanced Healthcare Directive. I'm going to go back and use the right terminology. With the Advanced Healthcare Directive, this person didn't have a trust because they didn't need a trust, okay?
But they need the directive.
Right, but you still need that Advanced Healthcare Directive.
Yeah.
Do you help people do that?
Yes.
Okay, because I never knew you did.
Yeah.
Okay.
You need a healthcare directive. You need a HIPAA release.
Okay.
A HIPAA release is an authorization that allows your doctor to speak about you and your condition to other medical professionals involved in your care and treatment, and other people that you identify in the HIPAA release, like family members. Without that, doctors are not supposed to talk about you. It's confidential. It's highly protected. And even I was surprised. My daughter had gone away to the University of Arizona for her continued education. And she got sick, and she went to the infirmary, and I called, and the doctor answered, and I said, I'd like to know how my daughter is doing. And he said, I know you're her father, but I can't talk about her with you because she hasn't filed a HIPAA release. I said, what's your fax number? He told me. I said, I will fax over the form, have her sign it, and then call me back.
Yeah.
He said, thank you. And he did exactly that. So if you don't have a HIPAA release, you can be locked out of discussing the care and the treatment and the condition of someone who's important in your life.
That's really good information to have.
Yeah. I also strongly urge everyone to have a financial power of attorney. It's called a durable power of attorney for asset management. And a lot of people say, what do I need that for? The trust governs everything that's in the trust, and that's true. But there's a provision in a properly crafted financial power of attorney that protects you from the state of California.
Okay.
The state has the authority to become your conservator, and if you don't know what that is, that's a guardian on steroids for grown-ups. Remember what happened to Britney Spears with her dad. He took control of her life, took control of her finances. If the state thinks you need help, even marginally, they will attempt to become your conservator, and they will put their people in your pocket, and they will control your life.
Yeah.
This provision says, in the event there's any petition or proceeding initiated to have a conservator appointed for me, meaning the state, no one else is going to do it, I nominate my people. And what happens is the state sees that, they walk away. They're not going to invest time and effort and resources if they know they're not going to win. So it protects you from that.
It's very hard because I had a client who her children had that, and she couldn't do anything, and all of a sudden they sold her property out from underneath her, and they stuck her in a convalescent hospital, and she had no rights, and people were trying to help her, and it was like coming up against a roadblock that she just couldn't get past.
If she was legally competent, she could have stopped it. If she was not legally competent, that's why she had it.
That's why she,
But she may have disagreed with her need for that, but if she was not mentally competent, her judgment is questionable. And so you have to look at what really serves her best interests, because that's what it's about.
And you have to really look at all of it. And not everybody's situation is the same.
That's true. Every situation is different in at least one respect. That's the people involved.
And the people involved, and what each person's values are different. So was my value right or wrong? No, it's not right. It's right for me, but it's not wrong for me. If that makes any sense.
It makes sense. That's
Yeah.
why you review things, you weigh, you balance what you
Right.
want and how you go about achieving it.
Right.
And that's where professional guidance can be a big help.
Yeah. But that advanced healthcare directive, I can't tell you how important it is, because I've experienced my father, and this is years and years ago, and I'm going to talk about my father again in a couple minutes. He was never going to die. It wasn't going to happen. And his estate was a mess. It took me years going through probate.
Yes.
That's for the financial stuff to get it cleared up. And who made out with the most money?
The lawyers.
The lawyers did. Absolutely. So if you have that trust set up, it really makes a difference. Okay?
Yeah.
Luckily for him, I didn't have to worry about, he just died at his kitchen table. But for my mother, they were divorced, okay? For my mother, it was a different story. She did have a trust, and everything was easy. Her finances were easy to take care of. I had that dual medical power of attorney. Everything was set up. And she had, now that's going to lead me into the most uncomfortable part of this, and that's, she even had set up what she wanted done with her remains. And to me, this is a big subject. People don't like to talk about it due to maybe your culture, your religion. I mean, there's so many factors, but we all think we're going to live forever, but we're not.
Nobody has ever gotten out of life alive.
Gotten out of it. I love your sense of humor. But at some point, you're going to have to deal with it. So nothing is sadder to me than when you go down the street and you see people standing there saying, help us pay for our grandmother's funeral or something like that. We need money. So what do you want done with your remains, okay?
There's a section in the directive where you can lay that out.
Okay, and I think that's real important.
It is real important. And your agent is authorized in the directive to make it happen.
Right. Somebody may want to be cremated.
Yes.
Okay. Some people may want to be, I call it the wall because that's where I'm going. And I don't really want that, but that's where I'm going, in the wall. Okay. People want to be buried. In my cultural, it's better to go back to the earth.
Yep.
Okay. I know people who want to give their body parts to science. Okay, I've seen other cultures where it's part of them is a form of cremation, and it's just it's what is it that you want, what you're comfortable with your religion, with your culture.
Yeah. And
if you've ever gone in to look at funerals and setting them up, it's expensive.
It can be. It is always more expensive if it is done on a need-now basis. Mm-hmm. That's why I encourage my clients to at least investigate pre-planning a funeral. That way you get what you want, and you get it at a reduced price, because every year the cost goes up. And
price of land goes
up. You
up.
pay for it this year and you don't die for 20 years. You get the services that you contracted for,
right,
no matter what they cost at that point.
Right. They do, because I remember when my mother passed away, she had her plot already picked out, but they charged us because the land had increased. Okay. What can I say? They did, and then she had selected a coffin that was very simplistic. They didn't make that model anymore. So we had to go in and choose something else. And we chose another simplistic coffin because she wanted a very simple coffin. And that was what her needs were. And she did have it set up. Now, I will say, I'm walking the talk. I'm taking care of all that.
Makes a difference. Makes a difference for your family.
Because you don't want your family fighting. You don't want your family fighting over the finances. You don't want your family fighting over your health and what should be done and what should be done with your remains. You don't want them to be fighting over this with one person saying, I can't afford a $60,000 funeral. And they can cost that much.
Yes, they can.
They absolutely can cost that much.
The line that cracked me up was a funeral director who told the people, well, this plot costs so much because it's got such a nice view. True story.
Oh, I know it's
and of course, the question was, for whom?
for who? For those that come are going to find time to sit on that bench next to the spot.
No.
Yeah. Or I know they want to be buried under this tree to get the shade. No, it's just, but again, you have to state what you want. And that's where having that trust, which counts, because what Dave's going to have and what I'm going to have is probably going to be two different things.
Right.
Okay? And our cultures are similar. Okay?
Yep.
But it's where we come from and what we're comfortable with.
That's the key.
The key. And because funerals now, a year ago when I talked a few minutes about the lady who I had medical power of attorney for, all of a sudden I became responsible for what to do with her remains.
If she didn't put it out in any other method, you have the authority to determine what happens to her remains.
Right.
But if she had a trust, the trust will provide that it pays for the funeral and related expenses. Right. So,
well, she had no money. Okay. And we had talked to her. I knew what she wanted. And that's what we did. We did exactly. But I'm going to talk about my father. Because of my culture and my religious beliefs, my father wanted to be cremated. I could not do it. I would not do it.
Wow.
Okay? And my brother was so mad at me because I wouldn't do it.
Yeah.
And my brother and I got along so well. I mean, we got along so well. So when he passed away, my brother, he was cremated. And my sister-in-law came to me, you're not going to be happy about this. And I'm going, that's his choice. The other one was left up to me.
Well, if you knew what your father wanted, and he expressed this clearly, he's entitled to have what he wanted.
He didn't, but he got what I wanted. So now I've made sure that I get what I want. Because I made that decision. That decision is my decision.
Yep.
And you can go and do it. And you can go to any funeral home or around and you can look and you can find out what it costs. Some of them have payment plans. There's also insurance policies out there. Also, and Dave will go back to the trust, your trust may have some provisions in there.
It always does.
All right, okay.
Always.
Or if you have life insurance policies, you can put some of that money aside for that if you have the kind of life insurance policy that has equity in it. Yeah.
Yeah. And most people who do that, you can make the insurance policy payable to the trust. Mm-hmm. So the funds go into the trust either to support the survivor of a couple, or to be distributed to their children or their charities or wherever they want it to go, and also to fund certain operations that take place when someone dies, like burial.
Like burial. Or if you want them to have that big party afterwards to celebrate your life, which I like that, people talk about how wonderful you were. So it's important, for that, if you're in the middle of that grieving process, as I remember when I went, this is over 40 years ago, when my father passed away, and we went in and we're looking at all the different stuff, and I'm looking at coffins, even then were $20,000 40 years ago, and I'm going, and tuxedos and
For what?
for what? For what? And what I was told by that funeral director is that the more emotions you have and the more
Yes.
guilt you may have towards that person, the more money you'll spend.
Yeah.
So that's, I know it's not the most comfortable subject.
No, but like I said, no one gets out of life alive. It's something that we have to talk about.
And you have to talk about. I have a friend who she knew she was going to pass away because she got pancreatic cancer. She organized her funeral to the detail,
That's right.
to what food was served at her.
Yeah. Make it easy.
Make it easy on yourself.
Well, you're making it easy on the people you leave.
That's more important.
That's what you're making it easy
Right.
on. You're dead, it doesn't matter.
My day.
But the people that are surviving you, they have to transition to a life without you in their lives. And if you can make that transition easier and more seamless, that makes a huge impact on them. You know?
Okay. So Dave is sitting there holding on, not your phone, okay?
Yeah.
Holding on to this trust. So did you want to show people what the trust?
It's just, some people say, what's it look like? This is what it looks like. What's it do? There's a whole lot of documents that are included in a properly planned estate plan. And all of these documents are necessary, and they're all with one view. That is to take absolute care of everything that has to be done to obtain and succeed in achieving your goals. That's all it's about. And to keep your family out of probate, because probate is horrible.
Right, and if you don't want to spend, I don't know how much you charge for all this, okay? But if you don't want to spend $2,000, $5,000 to do this now, your family will spend, what, 25% of the...
The average cost of probate in Southern California is now around 8% of gross value.
Gross value.
Why is that important? Let's say you have a house that's worth $800,000. You have a mortgage on it for $500,000. So what's the house really worth? $300,000. That's the profit you walk away with. That's called net value. The gross value doesn't consider anything you might owe. So the gross value on that $800,000 house is $800,000. 8% of that is more than $60,000 in probate expenses. How do you justify that?
It's outrageous to me.
It's obscene.
But if you ever want to leave your family a great gift, where it's going to take care of the financial, it's going to take care of the medical, the advanced health care directive, it's going to take care of what's going to happen to your remains and what they need to do. This is the best gift you can possibly leave your family.
It is. It is. Because it takes it off their shoulders.
Right.
They are allowed to grieve. They can move on. And there's no guilt involved. It works. The reason that we have trusts is because they work.
Yes. And you know what makes people fight the most over? Money.
Yeah.
And not only have they gone through the experience of fighting over your health and figuring out how they're going to take care of your remains, now they're going to fight over your money. You don't want to have that happen. I know I don't want to have that happen. And it's so simple, because I've been through it where my brother and I didn't fight over it. I'm very lucky, okay? But I've heard of people of siblings just not talking to each other over it. This is what I want versus what they want, and like who got what, okay? And that's just really important. One of the things, and I know there's a piece of paper in there, if you want a certain person to say, get a picture that you have hanging on the wall, you can write it down and label it and put it on there.
Yep.
And that's something I am starting to do.
That's important. My estate plans have a provision for you picking out, if you have a specific item of personal property, a specific piece of jewelry, a piece of art, a piece of furniture, anything that's in your house that you want to go to a specific person. Okay, you have 3 children, you say they each get a third, but I want my daughter to get my wedding rings.
Right.
You can do that in my trusts.
And that's the way it should be, because that way there's no arguing
Right.
over who gets what. I remember years ago, I had a great aunt who did a trust, and my mother was unhappy. She had no children, so she went through and she gave a lot of people some money. She split up all the money, and my mother didn't like the way it was done. She went to court, my mother. Okay, went to court, and the lawyer said to my mother, "You're a good grandmother," because she was standing up for some grandchildren that weren't part of this, okay? She said, "This is what's going to happen. Do you want your other grandchildren to lose what they're going to get? Because I'm not taking it away from the other people. I'll take it away from them. Or do you want your aunt to have what she wanted and give it to who?" And
Today, if there's a properly crafted trust, it contains a provision called a no contest provision. And what that says, boil it down, anyone, any beneficiary or person who thinks they should have been a beneficiary, who disputes the validity of the document or disputes the distribution plan without an extraordinary reason, forfeits 100%. They get nothing. And what's an extraordinary reason? They all impact whether the document was freely, knowingly, and voluntarily signed by someone who was legally competent. So if they could prove that the signer was not legally competent on the date and at the time they signed the document, that would be an extraordinary reason.
Right.
Or if they were under duress, someone threatened them, sign this or else. That would be an extraordinary reason.
But
if their reason was, this isn't fair, you're done.
You're done,
You lose everything you could have, should have, or would have gotten.
And my mother she didn't want the money for herself. She wanted it for other people, but she didn't get what she wanted. So the trust was properly crafted, as you said.
Yeah, it's important.
Yeah. So we're going to put information up here on how to get a hold of Dave. And if you can't get a hold of Dave and you need his information, you can always contact me. Please feel free to contact us. We love to help you out, give you information. I can only tell you how to get a hold of Dave. I can't tell you how to do that trust, okay? And if you don't want to do a trust and you just want to do an advanced healthcare directive or set up a thing for when you do pass on.
If you have any questions,
please call Dave.
Call me.
Or I can give you the number and how to call Dave. We're going to have that information up for you in a few minutes. Dave, I want to say it's so glad to see you in person instead of on a flat screen.
Yes, it's nice. It's nice.
We've done our other 3 seasons through Zoom because of the pandemic.
Yep.
And I'm happy to see Dave as a real person and that we're doing this together instead of...
Three-dimensional.
Three-dimensional, yeah. This is really great. So, thank you for joining us. It's been fun, and you have anything to add?
Just, there's no such thing as a silly question. If you have a question, ask.
Please do. Thank you.
Thank you. And thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm John Thomas. I want to share with you a professional products and services directory we call Going Solo Directory. And you need to check this out. If you want exposure to your business or are seeking professional product or services, this directory has it all. And that membership, for the many special features, you get the benefit of a worldwide exposure with a 40-minute video interview on an international business show showcase. All this for just one low annual fee. For more information, contact GoingSoloDirectory.com.